topic cutaneous vasculitis in the dermatology module. By the end of this topic, you should be able to define cutaneous vasculitis, explain the pathophysiology of this condition, outline the causes and classification, describe the clinical manifestations of cutaneous vasculitis, outline the investigations done, discuss the principles of management, and discuss the complications and prognosis of cutaneous vasculitis. Let's get started. Before we begin, there are few other terms that may be used interchangeably with cutaneous vasculitis, which are cutaneous leukocytoclastic angiitis, dermal necrotizing angiitis, and hypersensitivity vasculitis. To understand the definition of cutaneous vasculitis, let's break down the terms. So cutaneous vasculitis, cutaneous as we know means that it is related to the skin, whereas vasculitis is the inflammation of the blood vessels like the arterioles, venules, capillaries, and lymphatics. Therefore, cutaneous vasculitis is a group of disorders where there's inflammation of blood vessels in the skin, particularly small or medium-sized blood vessels. Occasionally, there may be signs of inflammation occurring in other organs, and this is known as systemic vasculitis. Cutaneous vasculitis may affect people of all ages and race. When it comes to the pathophysiology, there are mainly three proposed mechanisms. We can look at the pathophysiology as direct and indirect injuries to the vessel wall. When the medium or large vessels get infected with either bacteria or viruses, there may be a direct injury to the vessel wall. The white blood cells of the immune system will mix up the normal antigens on the endothelial cells with antigens from the virus or bacteria due to the fact that these antigens look similar. This autoimmune confusion is known as molecular mimicry. In the case of small vessels, there may be antibody activation or activation of the complement system, more specifically the membrane attack complex. These activations may lead to direct injury of the endothelial cells. Once the endothelium is damaged, the underlying collagen and tissue factors will be exposed. This in turn increases the chances of blood coagulation and weakens the walls of the vessels as more damage occurs. As the vessel walls heal, there will be deposition of fibrin, thus these vessels will become stiffer and harder. The causes of cutaneous vasculitis may be divided into primary and secondary. Under primary causes, you would have idiopathic, which is seen in 50% of cases. Examples of secondary causes, on the other hand, include infections, especially 7 to 10 days post-viral infections such as hepatitis B, C, HIV, Epstein-Barr virus, or post-bacterial infections such as TB, Staphylococcus or Streptococcus, autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, and inflammatory bowel disease. Other secondary causes may include medications like antibiotics such as penicillins and sulfonamide, anticonvulsants, diuretics like thiazides, NSAIDs, and oral contraceptive pills. Besides that, cutaneous vasculitis may also be caused by malignancies and hematological disorders, especially paraproteinemia or lymphoproliferative disorders, which causes thickening of the blood or development of antibodies, or other conditions in which there are abnormalities in red blood cells or white blood cells. Cutaneous vasculitis may be classified in several ways. It may be classified based on the size of the vessels involved, clinical and histological features, and etiology, but the best way to classify it would be according to vessel size. Vessel size wise, cutaneous vasculitis may be divided into small, medium, and large. Under small, you have idiopathic, drug or infection-induced cutaneous small vessel vasculitis, Henoch-Schönlein purpura, and acute hemorrhagic edema of infancy, urticarial vasculitis, exercise-induced vasculitis, and erythema elevatum dilutinum, to name a few. Examples of medium vessels vasculitis. Examples of medium vessels involved would be cutaneous polyarteritis nodosa, Kawasaki disease, and nodular vasculitis. And lastly, large vessels involvement would be Takayasu disease and giant cell arteritis. Next, if we look at the immunopathological and histological features, beginning with the immunopathological features, this type of vasculitis may be divided into the immune complex, mediated, and cellular hypersensitivity. Based on histological features, more specifically, the cellular components can be looked at. Leukocytoclastic vasculitis, in which neutrophils are predominant, includes polyarteritis nodosa, Henoch-Schönlein purpura, vasculitis due to drugs, infections, and connective tissue diseases. Lymphocytic vasculitis would include lupus erythematosus, lymphoma, and pityriasis lichenoids, whereas eosinophilic vasculitis is like Churg-Strauss vasculitis. Examples of granulomatous vasculitis would be Wegener's granulomatosis and Churg-Strauss vasculitis, whereas giant cell arteritis would include temporal and Takayasu arteritis. Moving on to the clinical manifestations. manifestations of cutaneous vasculitis. Locally, there will be non-blanching bruises like marks that may appear as raised lumps on the skin, which is typical. These marks are usually seen around the ankles, lower legs, and at the back of the foot around pressure points of the knee. Systemically, if the skin involvement is secondary to systemic vasculitis, symptoms such as fever, nausea and vomiting, blood in the urine, tingling and numbness in the hands and joints, and muscle aches may be seen. The patients may also complain of chest pain, shortness of breath, abdominal pain, and any other symptoms indicating organ involvement. Do note that there may be combinations of different symptoms. Interestingly, the clinical presentation of cutaneous vasculitis mainly depend largely on the size of the inflamed blood vessel. In the case of capillaries, you will see a pigmented purpura, which is characterized by petechia resolving in hemosiderin deposition. Small vessel vasculitis, on the other hand, is characterized by palpable purpura, whereas medium vessel vasculitis is associated with nodules and livedo reticularis. Also, another thing to bear in mind is that large vessel vasculitis may infrequently result in cutaneous features. Most of the time, the diagnosis of cutaneous vasculitis is made clinically based on the appearance of the patient's skin, but a skin biopsy can be followed through by histology and direct immunofluorescence, which may be done to confirm the diagnosis, but this is not always required. When doing a skin biopsy, it's important to take a biopsy extending to the subcutis from the most tender reddish or purpuric lesions. Histologically, there will be inflammatory cells infiltration in the vessel wall, resulting in both the disruption and destruction of the vessel wall. When direct immunofluorescence is done, a few different findings are found depending on the type of cutaneous vasculitis. And lastly, not forgetting, IgM deposition in blood vessels could be associated with circulating rheumatoid factors or monoclonal production. When it comes to the management, the main goal is to identify and treat any underlying conditions, but if no cause is identified and vasculitis is limited to the skin, then management is minimal and conservative. Generally, initial measures would include leg elevation, adequate rest, and advising the patient to avoid tight clothing. In addition to that, if required and appropriate, prescribe NSAIDs, antihistamines, topical steroid creams and ointments, and dressing if the skin is ulcerated. This is mainly for symptomatic management. Again, any underlying cause should be dealt with. For example, if the cutaneous vasculitis is caused by a certain medication, then stop taking that medication. Or if it's due to an underlying viral infection, then prescribe appropriate antivirals. However, if the episode of vasculitis is either prolonged, severe, or if there is ulceration, oral colchicine, dapsone, and corticosteroids should be prescribed. If this does not work in severe cases, or if there is the presence of systemic disease, then immune modulating agents like azathioprine, methotrexate, or high-dose corticosteroids and cyclophosphamide should be given instead. The main acute complication would be scarring on the skin, whereas long-term complications would be dependent on the type of cutaneous vasculitis. For example, in the case of Kawasaki, complications include coronary artery aneurysm rupture, or in giant cell arteritis, a complication would be cerebral infarctions. If there is also presence of systemic vasculitis, then the long-term complications would be organ damage, wound infection, and chronic ulceration. Prognosis-wise, 90% of the cases have a good outlook with full recovery. Please remember that this is the case if only the skin is involved. Most of the cutaneous vasculitis is self-limited, short-lived, and benign, lasting for weeks to months. These rashes may recur at intervals for some time after the initial episode. Even after successful treatment, the areas affected by vasculitis can become more pigmented, either brown or black, compared to non-affected skin. This may take months to fade to normal. The prognosis of skin vasculitis, on the other hand, is dependent upon the severity of the organ involved. Kidneys, lungs, or brain may particularly be life-threatening. Good prognostic factors would include strictly just cutaneous involvement and also being able to identify the etiology and manage it appropriately, whereas a bad prognostic factor would be having systemic involvement. Let's now summarize what we have covered so far. Cutaneous vasculitis is a group of disorders in which there is inflammation of blood vessels in the skin. Cutaneous vasculitis occur due to direct injury to the vessel wall in the case of bacterial or viral, or indirect injury to the vessel wall due to activation of antibodies and complement system. Generally, the etiology of cutaneous vasculitis may be primary, such as idiopathic, or secondary to an infection, autoimmune condition, medications, malignancy, or hematological disorders. The clinical features of cutaneous vasculitis is dependent on the size of the inflamed blood vessels, but the patient may present with purpura, petechia, nodules, livedo reticularis, or systemic symptoms like fever, nausea, and vomiting if there's systemic involvement. Cutaneous vasculitis is clinically diagnosed most of the time. However, a biopsy may be done to confirm the diagnosis, as well as routine lab and imaging studies may be done to rule out systemic involvement and identify the underlying etiology. Management-wise, it is important to treat the underlying cause and to provide symptomatic relief. In the case of prolonged or severe cutaneous vasculitis, prescribe oral colchicine, dapsone, corticosteroids, and if this fails or in systemic involvement, prescribe immunomodulating agents. So we have come to the end of this topic. Thank you.